You ever feel like you don't belong in this noisy world? Like you're walking through a crowd, but your soul is somewhere else? Deeper, quieter, searching for truth while others chase noise. You sit in a room full of people and feel like a stranger, not because you're shy, but because you see too much, feel too deeply, and think too far ahead. If you've ever been called too quiet, too deep, or too distant, let me tell you something. You're not broken, you're not weird, you're not out of place. You might just be an intuitive introvert. INFJ or INTJ. One of the rarest types in this world. You were never made to fit in. You were made to stand out, to lead quietly, to build silently, and to feel profoundly. And while the world praises loud voices and big crowds, your power lies in your silence, your insight, your vision. This message, this truth, is for those who've been misunderstood, mislabeled, and underestimated. Let's break down the signs that you've been gifted with the rare power of an intuitive introvert. Let's awaken what the world tried to bury inside you. You ever notice how you walk into a room and feel something before a word is even said? It's not the lighting, it's not the temperature, it's the energy. You can sense if someone's angry, even if they're smiling. You can feel tension hanging in the air like smoke. That's not something everyone can do. Most people hear what's said and take it at face value. But you pick up on what's not being said. You hear the silence between words. You see what's behind the smile. That's the gift of being an intuitive introvert. You don't just process information, you absorb it, you feel it. That's why crowds drain you. It's not the noise, it's the emotional overload. You walk through a sea of faces and your spirit picks up everything, every unspoken story, every masked emotion. You sense it all. That's not weakness, that's power. It's just that nobody taught you how to use it. You probably spent a lot of your life wondering, why do I feel so heavy around certain people? You walk away from conversations not tired because you talked too much, but because you felt too much. You saw their pain, even if they didn't share it. You noticed their envy, even if they hid it. And then you go home and replay the whole moment in your mind, trying to figure out why it hit you so deep. That's not overthinking. That's your intuition trying to decode what your spirit already saw. Most people just listen with their ears. You listen with your heart. You process with your soul. You don't just hear words, you hear intentions. You read the air. That kind of perception is rare, and sometimes it can feel like a burden. But it's not. It's a kind of radar the world desperately needs. And because you sense so deeply, you've probably felt alone most of your life, not because you didn't have people around you, but because nobody seemed to get it. They didn't understand why you got quiet in the middle of a group gathering. They didn't understand why you suddenly lost energy after spending time in a loud environment. They just saw you retreat and called you sensitive. But they didn't know that you were simply overloaded by emotions that weren't even your own. And that's the thing about intuitive introverts. You don't just carry your own feelings, you carry everyone's. It's like walking through life with a second skin, one that feels everything 10 times more intensely. And while that makes relationships richer, it also makes pain harder. You feel heartbreak that's not even yours. You mourn losses you weren't even part of. You weep quietly alone for things the world ignores. You're the kind of person who can look someone in the eye and know they're lying without any proof. You don't need evidence, you don't need facts. You feel the distortion in their energy. You feel the dishonesty. And it eats at you. Not because you want to judge, but because you want things to be real. You crave authenticity like oxygen. Small talk exhausts you because it feels like wearing a mask. You want depth, you want truth, you want connection that's felt, not forced. And when you don't find it, you shrink back, you go quiet. Not because you don't have anything to say, but because your soul refuses to waste energy on the surface. And maybe that's why people misunderstand you, maybe that's why they think you're distant or aloof. But what they don't see is that your silence is sacred. It's not empty, it's full of observation, full of reflection, full of truth. You don't just sense people, you sense moments. You can feel when something's off, when the energy in the room shifts, when someone's mood changes, when something's coming before it even happens. You've had dreams that came true. You've had gut feelings that ended up saving you. That's not coincidence, that's intuition. And it's strong in you. It's like your spirit is always listening to a frequency others can't hear. And that makes you a quiet leader. You may not stand in front of the crowd, but you guide it. You may not speak often, but when you do, your words cut through the noise. And even when people don't say it, they feel it. They feel that you see them. Not just who they pretend to be, but who they really are. And that's why people come to you when they're broken. They trust you. Not because you say the right things, but because you understand what words can't say. Because you understand what words can't say. Sometimes that gift feels like a curse. Because when you see so clearly, it's hard to unsee. It's hard to pretend. It's hard to play along. You notice manipulation in conversations that others think are innocent. You spot betrayal before it fully unfolds. You can't just brush off dishonesty. It sticks to your soul. And that can make life heavy, because while everyone else is laughing and moving on, you're sitting there processing the truth behind the moment. You're not trying to be dramatic. You're not looking for something wrong. You just know. And so you retreat, not out of weakness, but out of self-preservation. You need space. Not because you're antisocial, but because your spirit is tired from absorbing the unspoken weight of the world. You're the kind of person who can fall in love with someone's mind before they ever touch your hand. You can sit across from someone and feel a soul connection without a single word, because for you, attraction isn't physical. It's energetic. It's spiritual. And when you love completely. You don't love halfway. You don't love casually. You dive deep. You give fully. And that's why heartbreak hits you like a hurricane. Not because you're fragile, because you invested more than most people even know how to give. You saw their pain. You embraced it. You tried to heal it. But sometimes people don't know how to receive a love that deep. And that's not your fault. It's just the cost of having a heart that senses everything. But please don't close off. Please don't let the world make you numb, because the world needs love like yours. It needs vision like yours. You probably write your thoughts more than you say them, because writing gives you space to organize the storm in your mind, to express what your mouth often can't. Because how do you explain seeing through someone's soul in a world that only listens to what's on the surface? How do you explain the tears you cry at night when nothing even happened, except that you felt something deep in the universe shift? That's not madness, that's depth. That's the language of your soul speaking. You don't need to fight it, you need to honor it. There's wisdom in your silence. There's beauty in your depth. The world may not always understand it, but that doesn't mean it's not real. What you carry inside is not just valid, it's sacred. You're not just another person walking through life, you're a mirror. You reflect what others can't see. You reveal what they're afraid to confront. So yes, you're different. You always have been, you always will be. But that difference is divine. That sensitivity is not a flaw, it's a superpower. You don't need to be louder to be heard. You don't need to be seen to be valuable. You are rare. And with that rarity comes responsibility. Because while others chase applause, you seek alignment. While others want to be followed, you want to be understood. And while others look outward, you've always looked inward. That's why your journey is quieter. That's why your victories are private. But that doesn't make them any less powerful. In fact, your transformation is happening in ways the world can't even see. And when it's time, when your moment arrives, it won't be loud, but it'll be undeniable. People will feel your power before they hear your voice. That's the kind of presence an intuitive introvert carries. And if you've made it this far, if these words are shaking something inside you, then hear me now. You are not alone. You were never too sensitive. You were never too strange. You were chosen. Chosen to see the invisible. Chosen to feel the unspoken. Chosen to walk a path few understand, but many will one day need. So don't shrink. Don't apologize for your insight. Don't bury what makes you different, because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs more soul. And you, my friend, were born to bring it. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. You ever notice how the world never stops talking? Notifications, messages, demands, opinions. It's like noises everywhere, buzzing, humming, pulling at your attention. And then You step away, you unplug, you sit in silence. And the world calls that isolation. They say, why are you so distant? Why don't you come out more? But they don't understand what they call isolation. You call restoration. What they see is withdrawal. You know as healing. See, alone time isn't running from the world, it's returning to yourself. There's a difference between being lonely and being alone. Loneliness is when your soul is starving in a crowd. Alone is when your soul feasts in the quiet. You don't go into solitude to escape people. You go there to find the parts of yourself that got buried under the noise. In that stillness, you remember who you are. You hear your own thoughts again. You feel your own rhythm. You breathe without pressure. You think without judgment. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. The world may not understand it, but your spirit does. Because some of the deepest healing happens when you sit with your own soul and let it speak freely. You don't need constant interaction to be alive. You don't need to fill every moment with conversation to feel valuable. Alone time isn't emptiness. It's alignment. It's the sacred space where your soul catches up with your body. It's where your thoughts settle, where your emotions detox, where your mind stretches out and takes a deep breath. And for people like you, that space is not optional. It's essential because you give so much to the world. You feel so much, you absorb so much. And if you don't pull back to recharge, you begin to run on fumes. And when you run on fumes, you become someone you're not. Tired, irritable, disconnected. That's why solitude isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. People think being around others all the time is a sign of happiness. But some of the most miserable people are the loudest in the room. And some of the most fulfilled people are the ones walking quietly by themselves. Because peace doesn't come from presence. It comes from presence of mind. And you find that presence in stillness, in your room, on that walk, in those early morning moments before the world wakes up. That's where you reconnect with your purpose. That's where your vision gets clear again. And while the world is chasing more, you're choosing less noise, more meaning. Less chaos, more clarity. You're not avoiding connection. You just want real connection. You don't mind being around people. You just mind being around the wrong energy. Small talk drains you. Fake smiles feel like poison. Loud rooms filled with shallow intentions make your skin crawl. You crave depth. You crave silence that speaks louder than words. You want relationships that don't require performance. That's why you retreat, not because you don't care, because you care too much. And to give your heart fully, you first have to make sure it's whole. And sometimes that means stepping away so you can put the pieces back in place. You don't owe anyone constant access to you. You are not a 24-hour emotional convenience store. Your time, your energy, your space, these are sacred. And anyone who guilt trips you for taking care of your mental health was never invested in your well-being to begin with. People who love you respect your boundaries. They understand that solitude is where you gather your strength. That when you come back from that quiet place, you come back clearer, wiser, stronger. Alone time isn't rejection, it's preparation. It's the cocoon before the butterfly. It's the pause before the leap. And without it, you lose your fire. There is power in walking alone, not forever, but for a while. Long enough to hear your own truth, long enough to rediscover what you love, without influence, long enough to know your worth, whether anyone else recognizes it or not. That kind of alone time, it teaches you what settles your soul, what triggers your spirit, what needs to be let go, what deserves to be nurtured. You learn to be your own friend, your own protector, your own source of joy. And when you know how to enjoy your own company, you stop begging others to validate your existence. You stop shrinking to fit in. You stop chasing people who wouldn't even sit with you in your silence. There's a reason the greatest breakthroughs often happen in quiet moments. There's a reason the strongest people are the ones who spend time alone with their pain, their dreams, their God. That solitude, it breaks you and builds you all at once. It strips away everything fake and shows you what's real. In the silence, the truth is loud. And when you stop running from it, when you sit still and face it, you begin to rise. You begin to remember who you are underneath the noise, underneath the pressure, underneath the mask. That's not isolation. That's awakening. So no, you're not weird for loving your space. You're not broken for needing time away. You're wise. You're whole. You're listening to your soul when the world keeps trying to talk over it, and that's rare. That's brave. That's necessary. So take your walks. Sit in your car for an extra 5 minutes. Say home when your energy says not tonight. Say no when your energy says not tonight. Say yes to stillness, because the most important relationship you'll ever have is with yourself. And alone time, that's where that relationship becomes unshakable. You've always felt a little different, not broken, not lost, just different. While others rush toward action, hands already moving before minds are even engaged, you pause, you hesitate, but not out of fear, out of intention. You ask why when everyone else is obsessed with how. They want to skip the foundation and jump straight to the building. You want to understand the blueprint first, and that frustrates people. You've probably been told, stop overthinking or just go with the flow. But you can't. Not because you're slow, but because you're deep. And depth terrifies people who are content living on the surface. You're not trying to complicate life. You're trying to honor it by understanding its design. You're not satisfied with doing something just because everyone else is doing it. You want to know what it means, where it leads, what it costs. And that kind of awareness, it's rare. It's powerful. It's misunderstood. Because most people are moving so fast, they mistake momentum for progress. But you want meaning. You sit in silence while others rush toward noise. You linger in thought while others scramble toward action, because you've learned that silence speaks if you're willing to listen. That truth doesn't scream, it whispers. So you wait for it. You seek it. And while the world rewards speed, you've chosen stillness. Because you know it's in the stillness that real clarity emerges. They think you're being hesitant, cautious, maybe even insecure. But inside, you're waging a war of questions. Why am I doing this? What's the purpose behind this decision? Is this true to me or just what I've been told? You don't move just to move. You don't speak just to speak. Everything you do, every step, every word, every choice must mean something. And that frustrates people who want easy answers and quick wins. But you were never built for shortcuts. You were built for truth, for purpose, for alignment. And you'd rather walk the long, winding road to authenticity than sprint down a path that betrays your soul. Sometimes that makes you feel alone, like the world is running one way and you're walking the opposite. But you've learned that solitude isn't always a sign of being lost. It's often the proof you're on the right path. Because the masses don't question, they follow. But you're the one who stops and asks, why are we going this way? Who decided this? It's wisdom. It's the sound of a soul refusing to be programmed. It's the sound of a spirit that still belongs to itself. And while that voice may make you feel separate, it's also what makes you so powerful. Because the people who change the world, the ones who spark revolutions, who create art that lives forever, who speak truths that cut through lies, they all asked why when it would have been easier to just ask how. They were bold enough to challenge the system, even when it meant standing alone. You see things others don't. You feel what others numb. You question what others accept. And that sensitivity, it's not a flaw. It's your gift. It's what allows you to detect what's broken in the systems people blindly obey. It's what gives you the courage to walk away from what doesn't align with your values. It's what keeps you awake when the world would rather you be distracted. Yes, it's heavy. Yes, it's exhausting. But it's also the source of your strength. Because when others are confused by change, you're already 10 steps ahead, questioning the roots that led to it. When others get stuck in patterns, you're already breaking free, guided by something deeper than logic, something sacred. That's why you don't chase trends. That's why you don't beg for attention. Because what you seek can't be found in the spotlight. It can only be found in truth. And you know that truth never rushes, never screams. It just is. There's a fire in you that doesn't burn for approval. It burns for understanding. You've probably noticed that you're more energized by ideas than by applause, that you feel more alive sitting in thought than sitting in a crowd. because you don't chase noise, you chase meaning. While others ask, how can I get ahead? You ask, why do I even want to? That question scares people. It interrupts their hustle. It exposes their autopilot. But for you, that question is everything. It's the compass, the anchor, the filter. Without it, life becomes a performance. But with it, life becomes a purpose. You've tasted both, haven't you? You've smiled when you didn't mean it. You've played the part. You've nodded along. And afterward, you felt that hollowness, that ache that whispers, this isn't me. That ache isn't weakness. It's the reminder that your soul refuses to live a lie. That no matter how much the world pushes you to conform, there's a truth inside you that will not be silenced. And yes, it gets tiring. Being the one who always sees the layers underneath. Being the one who can't just accept things at face value. You feel everything so deeply. You process every word. You catch every contradiction. And sometimes you wish you could turn it off. Just for a moment. But you can't. Because this isn't something you do, it's something you are. And though it feels like a burden at times, it's also your superpower. Because while others are running in circles, you're digging for the root. While others repeat the same mistakes, you're dissecting them to extract the lesson. You don't just want results, you want reasons. And that hunger for understanding, that refusal to live in ignorance, that's what sets you apart. That's what makes your presence feel like truth in a world built on illusion. People may not always get you, but they feel something shift when you speak. Because when you talk, you speak from the core, not the script. You've always seen through the show, the small talk, the masks, the desperate need people have to look like they've got it all figured out. And maybe that's why you find yourself drawn to quiet corners, deep conversations, and honest company. You don't do well with shallow. You don't do well with fake. You'd rather sit in silence than pretend everything is fine. You'd rather have one real moment than 100 filtered ones. And that can make you feel like an outsider in a world obsessed with surface level validation. But don't let the noise fool you. Depth is rare, and that's why it feels lonely. But it's also what makes you magnetic to the right people. The ones who feel you. The ones who can sit with your silence and understand it's not emptiness, it's presence. It's power. Because when someone like you shows up fully, honestly, it gives others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to just follow the script, check the boxes, and call that a life. You were meant to disrupt, to question, to ignite. And yes, that road is harder. Yes, it's lonelier, but it's also real. And real is worth everything. Real is what keeps you up at night. Not with worry, but with wonder. Wonder about what else is possible, what else has been hidden, what else is waiting to be reimagined. That wonder, that's your fuel. That's what keeps you moving forward, even when everything inside you says, stop playing small. Because the truth is, you were never meant to be small. Your mind was made to stretch limits. Your soul was made to break chains. And your heart was made to ask why, until the answers you receive are finally true. You carry questions like armor, not to protect yourself from pain, but to protect yourself from lies. You refuse to settle for easy answers. You'd rather wrestle with a hard truth than be comforted by a convenient illusion. And that kind of honesty, it's rare, it's raw, and it's exactly what the world needs right now. Not more people who ask, how do I succeed? But people who ask, why does this matter? Not more followers, but more seekers, more questioners, more truth tellers. That's who you are. That's what you carry. And it's heavy, yes, but it's holy. Because when you walk into a room, you don't just change the energy, you raise the standard. Not by demanding perfection, but by living from a place of integrity, a place of meaning, a place of why. So no, you're not too much. You're not too slow. You're not overthinking. You're awake. You're aware. You're intentional. And that makes you powerful in a world that worships performance over purpose. Keep asking why, even when it's inconvenient, even when it makes others uncomfortable, because those questions, they're the seeds of transformation. They're what shake people awake. They're what remind the world that we're not machines, we're souls. And souls need more than instructions. They need truth. They need meaning. They need why. You ever feel like you're walking through a world that's asleep while you're wide awake? Like everybody's racing in circles and you're standing still looking at the horizon? That's not confusion, my friend. That's vision. And vision can be lonely. It puts you in rooms where nobody understands you, in conversations where your thoughts feel too loud, too different, too ahead. You speak and they tilt their heads. You share and they shrug. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're early. See, when your soul catches glimpses of the future, when your eyes can see what others aren't even ready to imagine yet, it's going to feel like you don't belong. But you do. Just not yet. You're a blueprint in a world still drawing with crayons. You've seen decades ahead while they're busy trying to survive the week. And that's not your curse. That's your calling. The crowd moves with momentum, but you move with intention. They chase what's trending, you chase what's timeless. They copy, you create. And that terrifies people because your clarity exposes their confusion. Your direction makes their drift obvious. They'll call you strange, dismissive, maybe even arrogant. But stay grounded. Let them mock now, because one day they'll marvel. See, vision doesn't just show you what's possible, it shows you what's inevitable. And when you know what's coming, you start living differently. You stop arguing with people who can't see past today. You stop shrinking to make others feel comfortable. You stop apologizing for dreaming big. Because once you've tasted that glimpse of what could be, it ruins your appetite for mediocrity. You can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. And trying to ignore it, that's when the real suffering begins. So don't. You've always had a different clock. While everyone else was trying to arrive fast, you were asking, where are we even going? That's vision, that's depth, that's wisdom that don't come from textbooks. It comes from alignment. And it means your journey won't look like theirs. Your steps will be slower, maybe quieter. But each one, intentional, strategic. You're not in a race. You're on a mission. And missions aren't built on speed. They're built on faith. Because when nobody sees what you see, you've got to believe in the unseen. You've got to walk even when there's no applause, no recognition, no proof. Just a knowing deep in your spirit that this path is yours. That's not arrogance. That's obedience to your gift. People will try to drag you back to their level. They'll say things like, be realistic, or that's impossible. Not because they hate you, but because your belief exposes their fear. Your vision threatens their comfort. And people will protect their comfort at the cost of your destiny if you let them. So don't. Don't let small minds shrink your future. Don't let their disbelief become your ceiling. Protect your vision like your life depends on it, because it does. That dream you carry, that's not fantasy. That's a preview of your potential. That's God whispering, this is what I've prepared for you. And you've got to protect that whisper until it becomes a roar, until what once looked like foolishness becomes a movement, until what once looked like foolishness becomes a movement, until what once... There's a reason you don't feel at home in the crowd. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to lead. But leadership isn't just about position, it's about perspective. It's about seeing what others can't and having the courage to say, follow me anyway. Even when the path looks empty. Even when your voice trembles. Even when your knees shake. Leadership says, I'll walk first, even if I have to walk alone. And that's you. You've been chosen not for comfort, but for calling. You weren't given that vision to hoard. It was placed in you so you could build it. And when it finally takes shape, the same people who doubted you, they'll ask you how you did it. But you won't need to explain, because your work will speak louder than any words ever could. You've sacrificed. Oh yes, you've sacrificed time, sleep, relationships, peace. You've carried burdens nobody saw. You've cried in silence. You've questioned everything, but you kept going. And that's what separates visionaries from dreamers. Dreamers fantasize. Visionaries fight, they bleed, they endure, they stay faithful when the world gives them nothing but doubt. You fought for your future in secret, and one day that future will speak for you in public. So don't quit now. Don't lower your standard. Don't compromise your soul to fit into systems that weren't built for someone like you. Your path isn't easy because your purpose isn't average. You weren't made to repeat history. You were made to rewrite it. Thank you for giving this moment your heart, your attention, your courage. May your journey ahead be filled with breakthroughs, with healing, and with the kind of peace that only comes after a great battle. Keep believing, keep building. Your time is coming, and the giant in you will rise. God bless you. Stay strong, and never stop becoming who you were always meant to be.